Hi, hello. So if you're coming from my first channel to my second channel, my main channel to over here, hi. This is like kind of my official introduction for this channel. This is going to be pretty much the spillover channel. I tend to want to talk about things a lot more. Obviously, I have a Patreon where I do bonus videos and stuff like that, but for the most part, this type of video that I want to put on here will be completely free for like everybody. These are probably going to be spillover videos, so especially with the forms I put out, I am not able to get to everybody, and even in this video I won't be able to get to everybody, but there are some like major things that I happen to gloss over or just completely miss in my main video, and so that's kind of like an addendum to this video. So you can watch it before or after, doesn't matter. Specifically, I want to talk about the different theories and things that you guys have going into the next chapter, because I put that in my form and then just completely like skipped over it. So that's what this video is. We're going to go through the form. I'm going to read some more of your responses, and we're going to talk about some of the like theory crafting stuff towards the end of it. And honestly, this is really cool to see just kind of like, what do the fans think of Deltarune? That's probably what I'm going to put like the title. What do the fans think of Deltarune chapter 5? Because it is a good sample size. It's too small to be like a real sample size, but like pretty good in my opinion. Okay, so bam, here we are. I'm just gonna go through some of these. I wanted to just kind of like recap what I've had seen a lot of people saying for each question. So when I was going through the sections for the festival, I noticed a lot of people saying again that they felt that it was kind of overwhelming. It was the weakest part of the chapter. Like I think a lot of people loved it. Obviously, like this person loved it. They loved the small town cozy vibes. The Suzelle. If you love Suzelle, you probably love the festival. If you did not care for Suzelle, you probably didn't like the festival. I think people who didn't necessarily care for like the shipping aspect or the like personal interpersonal relationship aspect of the game or of Susie and Noelle specifically, then and you were expecting more relations to like lore. I think a lot of people were expecting lore from the festival section, and I don't know, like I understand why people thought that, because like again, the festival was this hyped up thing over the last couple of chapters, like, oh, the festival. We thought Asriel was gonna come home during the festival as well, like all these other things, right? And now like we're actually here and we realize that like that kind of wasn't the point. I already mentioned it in my main video, but I think the fact that the festival was so short-lived was kind of the point. I do think maybe there could have been more, but honestly, I think it would have been too, I don't know, like the separation between Dark World and Light World for me is very distinct. And I think trying to add some type of mini game or like stuff to do in the Light World as much as there is stuff to do in the Dark World, I think the point is that the Light World is supposed to be something that is less exciting than the Dark World. And I think that we were expecting those two to merge eventually, like the Light World to be just as exciting. And I think that wasn't going to happen because of what we now know, right, about escapism and about Susie and how she sees the light world versus the dark world, right? I just don't think that the light world was going to ever hold that much significance. It might in the end, like it might be as the characters kind of shift their perspectives and stuff like that. Maybe in the end it'll be important, but I just don't think that. But I have seen a lot of theories about like the in-between in the light world. Like there's an entire street like missing in the light world that we don't get to see because of like Chris or something like that. I've seen multiple theories from multiple different people now talking about that. So maybe that's also a part of it. If that theory turns out to be true or even has a semblance of being true in some way, shape, or form, like that could also be a reason why we don't get to see much of the light world, right? But overall, while I understand why people can be like I said, it's always a valid criticism to be like, oh, I expected more out of this, especially because of how built up it was. I think the narrative reason on why it didn't happen is still a good one, if that makes sense. But yeah, so I saw a lot of people, also people talking about Curdley. I'm so sorry. I did not mention Birdley, I think once in my video. I am so sorry, Burnley. And I really enjoyed that section he was in. He wasn't there for much longer. I think there are some people out there who genuinely think Burnley's going to be like a part of the fun gang. He's not. He's just not. I think he might like come back at the end of the, just to be all like, you know, if we have like that moment like the end of Undertale where it's like all the characters come together and they're like helping you out. I think something similar is going to happen like that. And so I can see Birdley showing up in that way to be all like, yeah, and me too, guys, right, type of way. But yeah, I just don't see him being that important in the grand scheme of things that I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be. I saw a very interesting tweet that I'm not going to be able to find again because I don't think I liked it or anything, but I just saw a very interesting tweet that I think posed an interesting conversation about how people tend to look over the fact that like Noelle and Susie don't really like Birdly. And to that, I feel like a very subjective thing because they have not outright said that. Like, I think Birdly is a friend to Noelle and Susie and whatnot. But I do think it's definitely like comedic relief. Like, Birdly is definitely supposed to be comedic relief. I think it's okay to think deeper about that, right? Like, to obviously analyze. That's what I do on my channel, right? Like, I think it's okay to look deeper into like his character, and because what makes his character so strong even as comedic relief is that there are layers to his character, right? If he was just like kind of this one note character, then he'd be a one note character that people say one thing about and then move on. The reason why there are so many video essays about him, the reason why people have so many conflicting feelings about Birdly is because he's a complex character. He's not just a character who has this like complex about girls and women and then like, you know, move on. He is a character who has a lot deeper going on. However, despite that, that's just Toby Fox being able to write characters really well, right? Like, despite that, I still think he is mostly comedic relief. Like, even with Pizza Pants and Nice Cream Guy, I do believe that despite the fact that they have a lot going on, like they have an entire side plot going on, I don't think it's going to be like largely important in the grand scheme of things, right? And I think Birdly kind of fits into that schema very nicely. Like, he also is in the same vein as like Pizza Pants, the Nice Cream Guy, Bratty and Catty. Like, it's more to flesh out this town and to give reason to why the town is the way that it is, why all the people in the town are the way that they are, and less of like all of these characters are going to be super hyper important in the end, right? Anyway, I feel like that's why Birdly kind of gets the shaft and why people like love him and like whatever. Also, someone talked about the reason why Suzelle is a non-skippable moment, which I do agree. I think somebody in my original video was like, oh, most of the festival is skippable. Yeah, but there's a very big unskippable Suzelle moment. Again, if you liked Suzelle, you were eating. If you did not care for Suzelle, or you didn't really see it, or you hate Suzelle, you probably hated the festival section. Which I think regardless of how you feel about Noelle as a character, there's no denying that she is important now, right? Like, she is super, super important now, and you can't like deny that. And I think it has to do a lot with like what is predetermined via the prophecy or via the code or like whatever way you want to spin this, right? She is super important, and I think Chris was going out of their way to try and not make her important, because I think like my theory that I didn't really get into, and I've talked about this before in other videos, is this kind of time loop theory. This happens every day. It's 11:51 a.m. on a Tuesday. Like, what are we doing? Anyway, my theory that I've mentioned in a couple of videos, and honestly, I would make a full video about it, but like, I'm really bad at theory crafting. I'm more of an analysis guy, okay? Trying to look at what is already there and going deep into what is already there. Taking that and then trying to form it into a theory requires like a lot more just knowing everything that I don't. I just don't. Like, when it comes to theory crafting, you have to know a lot of like of the facts of every little tiny little fact, so you can be like, and this is why this and this, where it's like I usually just look at like the kind of whole of a character and the whole analysis of a character or an event or like whatever. Anyway, the point is, I've had this like theory that wasn't like too far fleshed out of like, I think that there is some type of time loop going on in Deltarune. I think Deltarune as a game is a game, and the game gets reset like every time it gets beaten. And I think the whole thing, I talked about this a couple of times about the original Fun Gang theory, the idea that Rouse, Chris, and Des were like the original Fun Gang who went into the Dark Worlds, because we know that Chris knows about Dark Worlds before we, the Souls, show up, right? So I think they, all three of them, went into the Dark Worlds, were playing this as a game, like as just a normal ass game, played the whole game, like the whole way through, got to the end, and the end they had to defeat like the Knight. Like, maybe the Knight was the like the big bad villain of the game or whatever, and they beat the Knight or something along that nature. Now the game has to reset. Cool, you beat the game, awesome, you got the good ending, quote unquote, the day is saved, the world is saved. Now the game has to reset. Now somebody else has to be the Knight. Now Des is the Knight. And in some way, shape, or form, Chris lost their soul in that process. And now, in trying to get Des back, Chris has willingly, well, not willingly, like obviously Chris wouldn't do that if they don't have to, but in this case they have to, and they want to do it in order to get Des back. So they have become the vessel, which is why everybody, not everybody, but a good portion of people believe that the person who interrupts the Gunner Maker sequence of like, oh, you can't choose who you are in this world, I think that's Chris. And Chris is the one interrupting the Gunner Maker sequence, putting the human soul into their body, and then proceeding to be the vessel. But obviously Chris has other plans. We know Chris has like other plans. We don't know if they're nefarious or not yet, but that's kind of my my thought process of like what is going on past just like the regular story, right? Like what Chris is up to, where's Des and all that. Azrael is kind of the only thing where I'm like, I think I wrote this down. I think I wrote this down in my script and I didn't mention it in the video, but I think I said it in my live stream. I said it somewhere. The Azrael isn't at college theory gets more and more plausible by the day. Where is Azrael? I don't know, but Azrael being away at college is getting like less and less plausible. Like it's getting more and more like, oh, Azrael might not be in college. Azrael might be somewhere else. Where is Azrael? I don't know. But just like if Des went missing and then all of a sudden Azrael goes off to college, like, I don't know, that's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of weird. I don't know, but, like, maybe Azrael saw that as the only way to escape the town, because there is still the meta aspect of, like, these are a bunch of teenagers living in a town that they feel like they can never escape, so maybe Azrael saw it as his only escape. Anyway, point is, to all of that time loop nonsense theory of Deltarune being a time loop by the nature of it being a game, I think that number one, Toby Fox is going to play with that as it relates to save and the saves that he had to do. Because remember, Toby Fox had to invent like a brand new fucking save system thing for Game Maker in order to do the thing that he wanted to do. And that still hasn't been fully realized yet. So, and right now, the only thing people have been privy to is the fact that, like, a lot of save, like, information gets transferred among saves. Like, having the shadow crystals, I think gets transferred among saves. I could be definitely wrong about that. Or the fact that, like, if you do the weird route on one save, other saves are now infected. So this idea of being able to transfer a lot of data between saves, possibly in the next, like, whatever happens in the end, maybe we'll have to do something with the saves and stuff like that. Like, I can see Toby going in a meta, like, mechanical way with that. That, and also the time loop theory of just, like, oh, Noelle being super, important to the prophecy. And so Noelle was supposed to be this girl, because if you think in like normal RPG like terms, I keep saying Susie, Noelle being this like kind of Aerith figure, which if you don't know who Aerith is from Final Fantasy VII, she is kind of just this she is like the titular girl magic character, but like she has a lot of depth to her and a lot of things happen to her, and I wonder, and like that is meant to happen in order for the game to progress. And so it makes me wonder if it's that kind of the same way, that kind of Final Fantasy vibe of like this was her role the entire time. Noelle's role the entire time was to be this magical fantasy character who, you know, ends up sacrificing herself or like whatever. I said that possibly the end of the prophecy is Noelle sacrificing herself, like the end of the prophecy that we did not see but everybody else knows is something about the girl sacrificing herself, or with the great sacrifice the world is saved and whatever, and it's a picture of like Noelle dying or some shit like that, right? Or some type of like a symbol of her dying, right? And so this idea that we're not gonna let that happen, the only like wrench in that plan is that Susie invited Noelle in on the plan. So, like, that's the only thing is, like, wouldn't you want her to stay away from all this stuff if you were trying to protect her? But, like, I don't. So that's the only wrench in that, like, theory about, like, Noelle possibly being the girl in the prophecy and, like, having to sacrifice herself in the end. Because the whole thing about sacrifice, police sacrifice, whatever, like, maybe Carol thought that, like, we just need to sacrifice somebody and we're just going to sacrifice police officers. There's still the whole thing there that we have not discovered yet. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic about this. People also talked about onion. The onion takoyaki. I didn't even put that together because onion obviously is onion sand is a squid. But the takoyaki balls tasted like onion, which is like, what the fuck is onion sand dead? Like what the hell? And also the the normal NPC being the one to sell it to you. I did mention it. Like I said, I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with it, and I kind of still don't. Like what the fuck does that mean? Like what does any of that mean? The fact that this NPC whose dialogue was like degrading over time, all of a sudden everything is fine. I think like I find it very, very weird that like the chapter 4, and the reason why I think people were a little caught off guard with chapter 5 was that in chapter 4 everything seemed to like be coming to a head, like everything to seem to be swelling, like that was the climax, right? So everything was like swelling to a point, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, back to like what we would see in like chapter 2 or 3 of Deltarune, right? And so I think that's why people had suspected that we would get all of this lore that we just didn't get in chapter 5, right? And I think it's because, and I think that's on purpose. Like I think Toby Fox did that on purpose, not just because it's like, oh, don't get too focused on lore, though I think that's kind of part of it, but also the idea that like this world is very like weird. It's not normal. Like it's not like a normal video game RPG world, right? And the rest of the characters are like, you know, the festival is supposed to be this time of like calm before the storm, but the fact that it kind of is after the big climax of the game where we're, you know, gearing up to do all this crazy shit, and then all of a sudden now we're at the festival. I think that was meant to be like a kind of like pause type of moment, because everything still feels really weird in the chapter, right? Like I noticed this as soon as I started playing it. Everybody was acting really weirdly. Like the Dark World especially, Castletown especially, was like really weird and topsy-turvy, and nothing was quite right. Like it had this weird lens to it. And I wonder if chapter 6 will kind of be the same. Like it'll start off very normal, quote unquote, and it'll start to get weirder and weirder and weirder. Or we might start chapter 6 immediately at the hospital. I don't know. I forget, like Rudy is definitely a thing there. So the whole thing with like Onion Sand, and I don't know, just especially because Onion Sand was in the lake, and now we know that the lake is important. Ooh. Ooh. How do you feel about the dark world of this chapter? Maybe my favorite yet, the weaponized nostalgia from Undertale and previous chapters. Yeah, that's the thing, is like I think Toby Fox has somehow managed to, yeah, like this person said, weaponize nostalgia, because like usually people are like, oh, this is all nostalgia bait, but people have been excited for the nostalgia bait. Like that's the thing that's funny to me, is that like when we learned that all of the secret bosses are going to be like Undertale variants, like, you know, under stuff in Undertale that we didn't necessarily get to fully explore, I like, of course there were some people who were like fighting back against that, like, oh, I want something just completely new, completely new. But the thing is, this is completely new stuff, right? Like even the Spamton, like the Spamton Neo fight, like that was like a completely new fight, because even though, yeah, sure, this would have been Metaton Neo, we didn't get that. And so this is a completely new thing that you've never seen before. And it's meant to like mimic these characters. And I think also the Deltarune Undertale connection, I think a lot of people have realized that the connection between these two games goes deeper than just, oh, this is a sequel to Undertale, right? And I think a lot of people have been able to appreciate the nostalgia a lot more, right? The whole thing with the 70 human flowers, right? I think like in any other game, in any other show, movie, whatever, people would look at that and be like, holy nostalgia bait, Batman. Like, oh my God, wow, fan service galore. But it's the fact that like, number one, it's new. It is new stuff. Like we did not get to know about the human flowers. And also the fact that like these flowers are like completely like not having anything to do with Undertale aside from maybe their personalities, which we didn't even know about in Undertale, right? So aside from like heavily inferring based off of items and items alone, we get characters with fully fleshed out personalities. And so I think that is the reason why Toby Fox has been able to take all of this nostalgia from Undertale and like put it in Deltarune in a way that works, because it's new. It's stuff we had questions about, stuff that we wanted to see, and stuff that is new, all wrapped into like, again, weaponize this nostalgia and be like, oh yeah, you really wanted to know about the human flowers? Well, here you go. Now I'm taking them away from you. I'm very mixed. I feel the Dark World was more fun to play gameplay-wise than explore. I don't feel like this Dark World is very inspired. Not that there wasn't areas that weren't very pretty. You can feel the quality of the art in Deltarune get a major bump in this chapter, but it lacked a sense of intrigue. Like, I like Japanese architecture and theming as much as the next guy, but I wish something was more blended in the mix to make it feel more interesting than stereotypical. Sure, we got a slight Western cowboy like aesthetic in some areas up in the mountains, but it's so minimal. I wish this Dark World being a plant shop felt more apart from how the Dark World functioned, like chapter 2 Cyber World. That's interesting. I would agree to disagree on this point, only because I feel like there is definitely a difference in chapter 2 to chapter 5 now. Like chapter 2, I feel like exploring was a very heavy part of the chapter. Like exploring was a thing that you needed to do in this chapter. Whereas like chapter 5, exploration wasn't as needed as much, right? I think there was like this person said, a lot more of a emphasis on the actual gameplay of it, which I think is just going to be left up to subjective taste. There are people out there who play this game and skip through all the dialogue. There are people out there who play this game for just the mechanics of the game itself and the fun of the bullet hell patterns and the mechanics, the new mechanics that Toby Fox adds in, and not because of the story, which like I love both. I love all of it together, but there are people who only care about the story. There are people who only care about the mechanics of the game. And so you're always going to be left with somebody who feels like, well, this chapter, like there are people out there who be like, this is Toby's best chapter yet. And there are people out there who be like, this is the worst chapter yet. And it's purely subjective because of what you care about when it comes to Deltarune, right? Like what you care about, if you care about the characters and you care about like character relationships and the story that is going on with these characters, the interpersonal relationships, then you probably love this chapter. Like me, I love this chapter, right? Because I love the flowers and the new characters we got and the interpersonal relationships and the push of the story through those interpersonal relationships. Whereas people who cared more about lore and cared more about like the overarching plot of the story didn't seem to have not liked this chapter as much because they didn't get that, right? They didn't get that lore until later on with Friend, right? They didn't get that lore. They didn't get that. And I feel like I think a nice balance of both. Like if you actually pay attention to the characters, we actually do get a push forward with the story. But if you don't care about the characters or you don't look that deeply into the characters the way you would with like the actual overarching world building lore of this world, which I can tell when somebody does that when they make theory videos. Like the best theory videos in my opinion have a clear understanding of the characters and the relationships that are happening. Again, platonic, romantic, whatever. The best theories are the ones that understand those relationships and then are able to, you know, predict what is going to happen, not just with the characters, but also the story because of those characters. And I think sometimes people who just make like lore theory videos are kind of missing that when they just only want to talk about like Friend and Gaster and whatnot. Because I think it's true that Friend and Gaster aren't going to be the be all end all of this world. Like, I don't think Gaster nor Friend are going to come out at the end. Maybe Friend in a way, and maybe only if you go try to find all the secrets. Like when you have to do all the secret boss stuff, like then I think Friend will be important, but I don't think Gaster is going to be as important as like people are hyping him up to be, to the point where I feel like a lot of these theories are missing the point, and they'll be like, the ending of Deltarune is going to end with Gaster coming out and like killing you or some shit, and it's like, no, I don't think so. You know, anyway. It's funny because then, yeah, literally the next one, the Dark World, is at its strongest up until the castle. In my opinion, the pacing, the fights, and the gameplay and interactions with characters and everything in general is so much stronger before the castle. I think the castle was shorter than I expected it to be. Like overall, and funnily enough, despite the fact that the chapter is like, I played it for like 9 hours, it felt shorter than I expected it to be. And I don't know if it's just because there are so many characters and so many mini boss fights. I will say the orange boss fight was my least favorite. Like at that point, I was just kind of like, whatever, like let's just get on with it type of thing. So I can definitely see that because that was the castle moment, like inside of the castle. I think the castle could have been built out more maybe. There wasn't much to do in the castle, if that makes sense, comparatively to like other places that we have been to, right? I definitely think that maybe the novelty of this Dark World kind of wear off after a while. I think also the novelty of the Dark World is just that, a novelty, whereas like all the other Dark Worlds have like a very strong theme as it relates to the characters that we see and the plot that we see. But I think, okay, it's very funny to me because I think this Dark World, the way it is shaped in the way that is so prime for someone like Asgore to enjoy it. However, because Asgore is completely ignoring everything and everyone within this Dark World, it never gets utilized till its fullest potential. And maybe that's me giving Toby Fox too much credit. I don't know. But like, I feel like maybe the whole reason why people feel like, oh, this Dark World wasn't used to its fullest potential the way other Dark Worlds were, the heavy, very heavy theming of like a TV world, an internet world, whatever. And this one is just Japanese? Like, why is this randomly Japanese? But what I think was supposed to happen, and the reason why the Dark World feels the way that it does, is because it was made for Asgore, who chose not to interact with it. Like, Asgore chose not to interact with this world, and therefore this world never got realized till its full potential. And same with the Fun Gang. We could argue the Fun Gang also chose pretty much not to really interact with this world, because their goal really was to just get through it, right? Whereas like every other Dark World, I feel like there was this air of like, oh, I'm gonna go explore. Explore, let's talk, and let's find more characters. There's also less like fighting NPCs, like less recruits to recruit this time around. And I think that again was because this Dark World wasn't fully realized. I think exactly like that. And I think maybe the next Dark Worlds we see might also be like that, like the Hospital Dark World. Like, imagine if there is a Hospital Dark World or a Holiday Manor Dark World. Either way, either one, I feel like it's not going to be fully realized like by its theming, because of who opened it, which I think will be Chris or maybe even Susie, right? And why it was opened, right? In this case, with the whole Dark World, with like Asgore trying to figure this out and like whatever, and then literally just for, I think the whole Dark World was open just for Asgore to get kidnapped. Like, I think Chris is helping the Knight kidnap people, which like, you know, that's your dad, but like whatever. And so I think the whole thing is that this Dark World wasn't fully realized because the Lightners who were supposed to realize it or help it become more realized weren't engaging with it. Like, whereas like the Cyber City Dark World, the first Dark World in the closet, and chapters 3 and 4 Dark World were highly engaged with by the cast, whereas like this one wasn't. And again, I could just be giving Toby Fox too much leeway here. Who knows? But like, I feel like maybe that's a reason why, because half of what I believe makes a Dark World special is all the interactions you have in it. And outside of the flowers, there was no interactions with the Dark World as a whole. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm not making sense. I don't know. It would have been nice to see more of Chris's overarching story explored through interactions with Asgore. Again, here's my thing. I understand that it would be really nice to see that, but I don't think that was the point. Right? Like, I think the point was that Chris isn't interacting with their family, that Chris isn't interacting with anything really, and that Chris is kind of on this one track of like doing this thing that needs to be done, right? Because there still is the nefarious, well, we don't know if it's necessarily nefarious, but assumedly nefarious workings and goings on of the evil group chat, right? And now we know that Asgore was not a part of said evil group chat, so Chris interacting with Asgore in this way actually was a bad thing, right? Like, it would not be a good thing, because like Asgore being like, Chris, why are you here? why are you here? I think I mentioned in my video that it would have been more interesting to see like why Asgore kind of just leaves Chris like, oh, Chris is here. And by the end of the chapter, he's okay with that. Like, I don't know, like, are we okay with the Dark Worlds being open? Are we not okay with them being open? Like, what's the going on here? And I guess we'll never know, because Asgore got captured, so we won't know until the end, where either all the Dark Worlds are open or all the Dark Worlds are closed and people can freely go between them. I don't know if that's like, I don't know if that would be like a good ending where like the Dark Worlds stay open. I don't know. Y'all let me know about that one. Anyway, the platforming was awesome though. I fucking love the platforming. Shout out to Flowery. The nostalgia contrast to chapter 1 was really good. Yeah, I actually really like that as well. And the characters like outright saying, remember chapter 1? I think it's because like we are getting to that moment. I think part of this is going to be very blatant about its meta narrative, like this idea that the characters are playing a game, and that we're now getting to the end of this game, which is why I think Rouse and Susie blatantly bring up like the first Dark World. Like, remember the first Dark World? Do you remember that time? I think it's because it is getting to that point, like in the journey that would normally happen in an RPG, where we start to reminisce and be all like, damn, remember those times, but it's done in a lot more smoother type of way, where, because I think Rouse understands that this is slowly going to be coming to an end. The Flowers being the best supporting cast in the game, abso-fucking-lutely. I love them so much. I love them so much. I think I think this person's very interesting when they said Chris is the one making the dark worlds, right? And so the way that the dark worlds are, because we see Susie make a dark world and it comes out really weird. So why when Chris makes a dark world, they come out like really interesting and like fully formed and whatnot and yada yada. That also could be the reason why this dark world wasn't fully like put together. Because it's like, well, maybe Chris didn't put as much oomph or effort into it, you know? I wonder if it's like a human thing, and the reason why Chris can make a dark world so well is because of the human and the soul and like whatever. I wonder. All right. So I talked about the ending. People said it was good, a bit unsatisfying, but made me hopeful for more. I think maybe that's just because there was like a very large cliffhanger. Like, yeah, chapter 4 also had a cliffhanger, but like this one was more like, okay, that was really weird. What the fuck? Like type of moment. Satisfied. Poor Susie. Oh my god. There's a fly. I don't know if you saw it in the camera. There's a fly. Or was that a fly? I think it was a fly. Anyway, so next I really want to talk about how the ending will lead into the next theory. Okay. Given the TV console looking thing at the end of the weird route, I really wonder if we're going to zoom out of the game meta elements even further, which is very interesting. I said it again. With 7B, I think there won't be any weird route in chapter 6. I think that's what it's heavily implying, that there will be no weird route in chapter 6. If there is, it'll be like something very meta. You won't get to see the characters. Like, I think it'll be something meta, maybe you interacting with Gaster in some way, shape, or form, or whatever. But there will be no weird route in chapter 6, like at least with the characters, the main characters. Maybe you might see maybe the reactions to other characters, but it feels like they broke the game. Like, so I don't know if we'll ever see those like normal characters ever again. With the main route, I think that like it's either going to be a hospital dark world where Rudy is in the hospital, and I think the dark world will be opened up in the hospital. I'm trying to think of like where else it could be open. Like like we kind of running out of like places it could be open. And honestly, I think like the hospital, or people are saying hospital or Noel's house. I say Noel's house if Noel's dad is in like critical condition, and usually you take somebody home from the hospital if they're no longer going to live. So like hospice care, like type of shit. So like there's that. And then there's the possibility that he's in critical condition. And I said this in my video, the idea that like Noelle will either be really on board with the dark world because maybe Rudy will be okay in the dark world and she'll want to stay in the dark world forever because the dark world is so much better. So let's just keep the dark worlds. And it's like, well, we can't keep one open. So it's like, we can only keep one open. And then maybe Noelle will be like, okay, well, let's just turn the whole town into a dark world. So that way we don't have to worry about specific locations, which will lead to the whole world turning into a dark world, which will be probably the Roaring, right? So in that way, I think almost the entire chapter is going to take place in a dark world. And so therefore, I think that's why there's going to be no weird route, if that makes sense. Everything has been set up and it seems awesome. Susie will have the rug pull back into the pits of despair to really test her character growth. Oh yeah, we forget that like both Rouse and Chris are hiding something from Susie, and I think Susie might end up to that. Noelle will end up in the dark world again. Yeah, I absolutely believe she'll end up in the dark world again. Azrael might come back. Ooh, okay. There's a lot of details to teach. Who is the knight anymore? Like, I don't think that matters. I think I talked about that in my video. Like, I don't think it matters anymore. Like, would it, like, realistically, you find out the knight is Des. Okay, like what does that mean? Like we don't know what that means. There's no context to it just yet. And I think that's what people really want, is the context of like, if Des is the knight, why is she the knight, right? The why I think is more important, and the why and how I think are more important than the who, right? Whether or not the knight is Rudy, Des, some other third character, Papyrus, or like whoever, whether or not that is true, if it even is a person, right, from the light world, I think that the more important thing to ask is, okay, what does that mean? Like, how did they become the knight? Why did they become the knight? Like, what is up? Like, are they alive? Like, what, or are they like dying? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Chris losing their hand, I absolutely agree with that. Rouse is not an object, maybe a flower. A lot of people have been saying tree. I also heavily agree with tree. Yeah, Noelle going into the next dark world, Rudy in critical condition, Des roaring knight reveal. Okay. Chris, buddy, that hand is gone. Absolutely. Third route theory is so plausible to me. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've been seeing a lot of that as well. Spooky Dude, I think, was the first one to make a video about it, but I've seen a lot more videos since then about this third route theory. So you have the normal route, you have the weird route, and now we have this third route. And this third route will be brought about by the ending specifically. I think that's what they were saying, that like you only get to unlock said third route when you get to the end of the game. And I think that is true because I think there will be a way to go back and put everything else into different context. Like, I think, again, thinking about the stuff that Toby had to do mechanically with this game, what if there's a way to go back through your saves and change things, but specifically to your save? So not just like how in Undertale you can go back, like in the pacifist route you get to the end technically, and then you have to go back and go to the lab and do all the lab stuff and whatever. So you're technically backtracking, but what I want to see is specifically you backtracking through saves to do different things that will end up with different outcomes. And not just like, oh, I'm going to change this one thing here and then this happen. I'm talking about like full different stuff happening. And the only way I can see this happening is that you would have to get to the end first, right? And this isn't something that like you could have done on your first playthrough. Like, you know, on your first playthrough, I'm gonna get this key instead of like not getting the key, and now I have to backtrack and get the key. Not like that. Like, this is not like in Stars in Time, for example. Remember, there is a game that Toby Fox said had come out that had a very similar presence to his game, and a lot of people were like, "Is it Omori?" And I'm sitting here like, "Is it in Stars in Time or One Shot?" Like, I think it's one of those games. I think it is either Omori, in Stars in Time, The Fly is Back, or One Shot. I think it's one of those games because they have to do with time travel, or at least in Stars in Time and One Shot do. They have to do with time travel and this idea that like you have to go back to change something. I don't think, like, in Stars in Time, I'm playing through it now, I think that, like, there's no way for you to do everything on your first run. I think there is a way to speedrun certain aspects of it, but even once you get to the end, you have to go back in time in order to do certain other things, right? And so I think, and the game only changes once you're able to do that. And so I think something very similar to that is going to happen. That's my theory. Oh, the plants and the roots and the flowers, I think they will also become more prevalent, definitely, because we brought up the fact that plants are neither lightener nor darkener, and I feel like that's a really crazy thing to bring up and then never bring it up again. Major friction between Susie and Noelle, yep. Like I said before, your ship is on thin ice. You may think you have won, but your ship is on thin ice. All right, and then anything I missed that you wanted to talk about? I'm very glad that we know now the so-called freedom motif was actually Batat motif all along. Trans Rousey, girl, it's happening. Girl, I know. Girl, I know. I am a believer. I am a believer. Jevel's characteristics as sayings were indirectly mentioned. Oh yeah, Jevel was mentioned a lot, which is crazy. Like the world revolving. Like, what does that have? What? Like a CD? Wait, the world revolving. Like a CD? What if though? But like, what if though? Like, what if though? Keep that in your. I thought this had a pocket up here. Keep that in your pocket. Keep that. Hold on, I got pockets. Hold on. Keep that in your pocket, okay? Keep that in your pocket. Also, thank you guys so much for answering. This is like so much fun to do. Oh, the secret boss fight about Kitty Mew Mew, Chris being controlled by the player. Yeah, the parallels between the two. I didn't mention it too much just because I haven't technically played it yet. I did watch somebody play it, but I technically haven't played it for myself. But there is definitely a lot. I find it annoying that so many fans trash the chapter because it wasn't lore heavy. I think it's a great palette cleanser for chapter 4. Yeah. I'm excited and scared for chapter 6. It's only 2G. It's only for free. Yup. Onion Sand, the hometown butcher, Onion Sand. I don't know who Zen Looker is. Who the hell is Zen Looker? Who? Oh. I don't think, did I ever? Wait, yes. I did. Wait, did I meet this person? I don't know if I ever met this person in my original thing. They're like the person who also holds milk in the main one. Okay. Someone mentioned, I think I mentioned it in my main video, but someone mentioned the kids. Oh yeah, the fact that Elvis wasn't in the Dark World, that's like anime themed, like, or it wasn't anime themed, it was more Japan themed. But it could have been more anime themed if Elvis was there. But yeah, the kids, the Snowdrake kid and the Goner kid weren't there. They like disappeared. They were not in the chapter at all. Like you could not find them. And last we saw them, they were in front of the bunker. What's that about? y'all and friend, man. Y'all and friend. Oh yeah, I think, and we'll end it here because I think everything else I pretty much mentioned either in my video or here. I I love how Toby Fox has been able to incorporate multiple themes at one time. I think something that has been bothering me at least a little bit with the way some people talk about Deltarune is the idea that there's only one answer, that there's only one narrative message that we are getting from the game. Like I mentioned this when I talked in my video about how Noelle functionally killed herself in the weird route, and people were like, well, no, they didn't actually kill themselves, they just glitched out of bounds. And it's like, yes, both things can be true. Like literally, quite literally, they glitched out of bounds. Like in the actual like thing of the game, they glitched out of bounds. Narratively, on a meta level, which we have been talking about this entire time as it relates to like we can't sit here and talk about like, oh yes, she was like depressed and was thinking about killing herself, and then like we get to that point and then all of a sudden people are like, well, no, that's not what actually happened. It's like, because that didn't actually happen, right? Like like it can't be a metaphor or allegory for a girl who was very suicidal because of certain things happening in her life, and also at the same time what is literally happening is the fact that she and Chris went out of bounds of the game, right? But that also could lead to death. Like we don't know if they're still alive in the way that we know them to be alive, you know? Anyway, I digress. I want people to take from this like the themes of nostalgia, the themes of escapism. All of those are the themes in the game, but they are also kind of like the baseline, right? There's also being queer in a town where, like, while again, hometown specifically is not homophobic, transphobic, or whatever, there's still a lot of heteronormativity going on there. And being different in any way, shape, or form, or different in the way that like Chris is different, Susie is different, Noelle is different, even Rouse is different, ends with you being ostracized in some way, shape, or form. That has a lot of, I talked about this in my video like a year ago about the gay people in Deltarune. Like that has a lot of allegories to how queer people live their lives. But people are trying to push back on that, being like, well, hometown isn't, you know, homophobic, transphobic, whatever. And it's like, yes, that's why it is a allegory and not exact. But anyway, I digress. I love talking to y'all. Continue, you know, reach out to me on Patreon, reach out to me on Discord, reach out to me in the comments. Thank you so much. And I guess this is technically my official first video on this channel, or my official like edited first video. I put that in quotes because I won't be editing this too much. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you later. And if you somehow found this video before you found my main channel, it'll be linked in the description. Bye.